So camera is one of the most sought after feature when it comes to buying a smartphone. You know, many people keep asking about if its camera is good, if a smartphone's camera is good, and they keep asking to suggest a smartphone that is under budget but still has a good camera. So yes, people totally like a good camera even on a budget or a mid-range smartphone. So today we have a camera comparison between the Samsung A24 and the Redmi Note 12 Pro 5G. Well, you might be saying this might not be fair because Samsung A24 is slightly cheaper at $280 and the Redmi Note 12 Pro starts at $325. But we want to see if the Samsung A24 can go up against the Redmi Note 12 Pro that has a flagship sensor, actually an old one. Even though it's a flagship, it is a Sony IMX766 sensor, whereas the A24 uses Samsung's own ISOCELL ZN-1 50 megapixel sensor. So recently we went to a car launch event and there we took some sample shots from both the Redmi Note 12 Pro and the Samsung A24. So I'll give you some sample and tell me which one's better. So go on, comment down below which one's better, tell me. Right, I'll tell you, the A is the Samsung A24 and the B is the Redmi Note 12 Pro, and you can clearly see that Redmi Note 12 Pro has better details, looks sharper, and it's also wider than the Samsung A24. Also, the Samsung A24 photo looks a bit warmer than the Redmi Note 12 Pro, and also it sounds slightly noisy on the edges. So yeah, in this one, the clear winner is the Redmi Note 12 Pro. But this is only one photo, so let's take a look at some more photos. Now moving on to the outside, you can clearly see that the Samsung A24 here has more punchier color and the car looks more warmer than it really is. And also the Redmi Note 12 Pro has much more better details. If you look at the ground, in the car, and even in the background, it is much more sharper. So here the winner is the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Now moving on to much more a closer shot of the Citroen C3 logo. I think the detail doesn't really matter here, but the Samsung A24 picture looks much more appealing due to that contrasty and much more saturated look. I think I like the Samsung A24 here than the Redmi Note 12 Pro. And now again moving on to a much more wider picture of this building right here. You can clearly see that the sharpness of the ground and even of the building is much more better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro, and it is a clear winner. The color is similar on both of the phones, and of course Samsung A24 has lower details and doesn't look as sharp as the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Now we are testing portrait mode on both of the phones. So first is the A24, and you can see that we can adjust the strength here, but it does not show the f-stop, so we'll put it at 3. So the shutter speed is slow. Now let's move on to the Redmi. And you can already see that the Redmi Note 12 Pro has much more wider field of view than the A24. Take the shot, 2, 3. And you can see that shutter speed is much faster on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So we can already see that it follows the similar pattern that we saw on the main camera photos, and the A24 doesn't look as sharp as the Redmi Note 12 Pro, and the color also looks better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro actually. And if we zoom in, yeah, the face looks much more sharper on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. It looks much cleaner, but I think the detail, the texture of the face looks more natural on the A24. The edge direction is fine on both of the phones. The cutout looks good. Now let's ask Pranis which one he prefers more. So take your time.
One eternity later.
Okay, this one's little on the reddish side. Which one? This one's the Samsung one?
Yes, this is the Samsung A24.
I definitely prefer the Samsung look over this Redmi phone.
Alright, so Pranis over here prefers the Samsung A24's portrait than the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Let me know which one you prefer. Now let's take a look at more portrait photos. So this one, we took this one on the same car launch event. Redmi Note 12 Pro looks sharper and has more of that blur effect and looks slightly fake than the Samsung A24 here. I think Samsung A24 does better in terms of the edge detection and that blur effect, but of course the detail is better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro, and also Samsung A24 has more of that warm, contrasty look. So I think this is not, I think this kind of a draw over here. Now in terms of the shutter speed, the Redmi Note 12 Pro is the winner here, but let me show you how fast it actually is. So let's capture this photo. And you can clearly see that lag on the Samsung A24. It's almost instantaneous on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So yes, the shutter speed is definitely much more faster on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So focus on both of these phones should be good, and I'm testing the A24 here, and it is quite fast. The focus is quite fast. It latches on to the object pretty quick. So the Redmi Note 12 Pro focus actually looks slightly laggy than the A24 right here. I don't know if that's just me or yes, clearly the Samsung A24 is much more smoother, I would say. This looks a bit choppy focus, a bit laggy. Yeah, Redmi Note 12 Pro doesn't have that smooth autofocus as the A24 here. Now the ultra wide angle comparison is not really fair because the A24 only has the 5 megapixel sensor, whereas the Redmi Note 12 Pro has 8 megapixel sensor. And as you can see in these photos, the Redmi Note 12 Pro clearly has better photos. It is much more sharper. The color is also better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. The color on the Samsung A24 looks faded, kind of boring, and there is much more noise as well. Yes, the Redmi Note 12 Pro is a clear winner when it comes to the ultra wide angle, be it indoors, be it outdoors. The ultra wide photos is much more better on the on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Now let's take a look at the selfie camera of both the A24 and the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So the A24 will go first. This has 13 megapixel camera, so we have plenty of lights here, so the light should be enough even it is indoors. So let's take a picture. So Samsung usually has two crop factors, so one is wide and one is a bit zoomed in, but on this one there's not much of zoom in, I would say. Even the wide one is not that wide. So let's take a picture. Second one. All right, now let's take same pictures with the Redmi Note 12 Pro as well. So clearly, yes, this one has 16 megapixel sensor, and this is also wider. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, now let's take a look at the results. So in terms of selfie, you can already see that the Redmi Note 12 Pro has a wider field of view like the main camera. But I like the overall look of the selfies of the A24. It feels more natural. The contrast is really great. Then the color also feels better because on the Redmi Note 12 Pro, the overall photo is much more brighter. It exposes, the exposure is much higher on the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So I think I like the overall look of the selfies on the A24. Also, the face tone is, much more closer to reality on the A24 than the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Now we'll take a look at more of the selfies from both the Redmi Note 12 Pro and the A24 because we have captured a lot of selfies both indoors and outdoors and different situations. So you can see here different kind of selfies, and let me know which one you like the better, the A1 or the B1. So let me know. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Alright, so I'll tell you which one's which. So A is the Samsung A24 and the B is the Redmi Note 12 Pro. So now we'll be testing the videos of the Redmi Note 12 Pro and the Samsung A24. So this one can capture only up to 1080p 30 fps, while this can do up to 4K 30, and both have OIS, and OIS works at 1080p 30. So now let's test the stabilization, and now I will run. Alright, we're back in the studio and the results are different than what we expected. So we expected Redmi Note 12 Pro to have better video, but the Samsung A24 actually is doing really good at 1080p 30 fps. So if you watch this video of our stabilization test, you can clearly see that the Redmi Note 12 Pro has that blobbing effect going on, the focus in, focus out, but the Samsung A24 is doing much better job at that, and the stabilization looks much more cleaner, and the video is also much better with the contrast color and just looks more appealing. Right now in this next video, we're just taking a normal pan shot from both of these phones at once, and you can see that there's not much different in terms of detail or sharpness in the video, but the videos from the Redmi Note 12 Pro look slightly washed out or slightly flat, especially in the background. Color and contrast is better on the A24, and I like the overall processing of the video on the A24 as well. Now switching things to the ultra wide lens here, the Redmi Note 12 Pro is doing a much better job here because it has the high megapixel count, 5 versus 8. You can see that the detail is much more better, and overall the processing is also better on the Redmi Note 12 Pro when it comes to the ultra wide video. Now this is the last video, so we are just walking towards our office, and you can clearly see that the Redmi Note 12 Pro has that blobbing effect, and that does not make the video appealing. And on the other hand, the A24's video has that warmer look, but I like the color processing and the exposure on the A24. Yes, so I think the video is, I'm tilting towards A24 over here. Well, both of these phones are doing excellent job when it comes to the cameras. Both of these phones are good considering their price tag, and though this one is cheaper, this is also doing a very good job, except the ultra wide because it has a inferior ultra wide angle compared to the Redmi Note 12 Pro. But overall I would say both of these phones are good, but considering the price tag, A24 is really good.